in this past week, I've read 3 books, and I'm on track to finish my 4th by the time this week ends. And if I keep this record up, I'm on track to read well over 100 books this year. And here's the craziest thing. I was that kid who always struggled to even finish a chapter of a book when I was in school. So I can promise you that this is the only video you'll ever need to watch if you want to read faster, finish more books, and actually gain way more knowledge than anybody you know in your life. Because I'm going to tell you the 4 mistakes that once you stop avoiding, you'll finally be able to read at least 4 times as fast as you can right now. So, as always, the timestamps are on screen and they're down in the description below if you want to skip around to different points in the video. But that's enough hanging around, let's get right into it. The first mistake is something that I can guarantee almost 99% of people who read a book make. But the absolute craziest thing is that most people don't even realize that it's a mistake to start with. So I can prove that you're making this very same mistake too. And to do so, I want you to read an excerpt from my favorite book of all time, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. To do or not to do, to try or not to try, most people will vote no, whether they consider themselves brave or not. Uncertainty and the prospect of failure can be very scary noises in the shadows. Okay, now I bet that when you were reading that in your head, you were sounding the syllables aloud. And that's because when we were 4, 5, 6, this is the way that we were taught to read in school. But we were taught wrong. At least kind of. Let me explain. So when I was first learning about this technique, what I would do to kind of improve the speed at which I could read is hum aloud whilst I was going over the words. Literally just like this. When you do that, you can't help but not sound the syllables aloud in your head. You don't need to sound out words like consider and people in your head to actually understand what those words mean. And if you make that kind of droning sound, even though it's very weird and strange, I can guarantee that your reading speed will probably triple like that. But I've got to be honest with you guys, I kind of lied to you. Because whilst I said you were only making 1 mistake when you were reading that extract, you were actually making 2 huge errors, slowing down your reading. To understand that next mistake, I want you to answer this question. What do you think that dead people and fast readers have in common? Well, you're probably not guessing it anytime soon. It's the fact that they don't move their eyes very much, if at all. Because the secret to reading fast is to maintain forward progression when you're going through a book. But that's almost impossible because our eyes rarely ever stay still. I mean, have you ever looked into somebody's eyes? I mean, really looked into somebody's eyes, you'll see that their eyes dart all over the bloody place, making small movements that just happen like that. And the problem with that is oftentimes we'll be halfway through a line or a sentence, forget where we are in the book, and then have to go back and restart from the beginning. And that might not sound like it slows you down so much, but when you're doing that a couple of times per page, well, in a book as long as this, that could probably set you back hours. And the key to avoiding this mistake is stupidly simple, because all you want to do is just trace underneath every word on the line. And this might sound a little bit silly, daft, and maybe even juvenile, but I can promise you that this will stop you regressing and losing track of where you are on the page. And as a result of that, you'll stop rereading things that you already read, which is a complete waste of time. Okay, now I'll be honest with you, this next tip is a little bit advanced, but I'm pretty confident that if you've made it to this point in the video, you've got what it takes. But before I get into that, if you're enjoying the video so far, please make sure to leave it a like. And if you want to keep finding ways of improving your life, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss a video each Monday when we release a new bit of content. And again, this is another idea that I've stolen from Tim's book, and it's probably been the thing that's allowed me to read faster than ever before. And to understand this, we need to think about how a camera works, because the way we record videos is actually very similar to the way we read. So when you record a video, a camera uses something called frame rates. And what's actually happening in your video is that each second a group of pictures is being played back. But this comes across as video because the camera takes these snapshots really quickly. And usually we get 30 of these little still images per second. 30 frames per second. And the way reading works, as Tim Ferriss points out, is that our brain is taking little snapshots of the page. And these are called saccades. Essentially, to speed up our reading, we want to be reducing the amount of these saccades that we're taking. Because, as we've just seen, this reduces the amount of movement that our eyes do, And of course, that's going to speed up how fast we can read. So to do this is a little bit of an unconventional method. But instead of starting a line from the start like you normally would, I want you to focus on starting from the third word in and finishing the line on the third from last word. And this just makes use of our peripheral vision. So over time, what you can do is keep reducing this indentation in and in and in until eventually you're only taking two sort of snapshots with your eyes at any one moment. But if all of this seems a little bit overwhelming, I can promise that this last tip is something that everybody can start to do, regardless of whether you're a beginner at reading quickly or you're pretty advanced. I'm going to combine a couple of my favorite ideas from people in this self-improvement space, Tim Ferriss and Mark Manson. And basically, to do anything in life, you need to treat it like a muscle. And the exact same is true if you want to read faster. So when we're in the gym and we're trying to build bigger muscles, what we do is something called progressive overload. And that basically means that each time we go back to the gym in a new week and repeat an exercise, we're adding either more repetitions or more weight to make the exercise slightly, progressively harder. And we want to do this when we're reading too. So the first thing you want to do before you use these other 3 tips to read quickly is just to try and max out your brain. So what you want to do is just spend 5 minutes reading as fast as is humanly possible. Don't worry about understanding what you're reading, comprehension, or even if you're taking anything in, just focus on the 3 things that we've already talked about in this video. And this is because after those 5 minutes are up and you slightly slow your speed, you get a whole new perspective on the book. And the second way to read faster with this kind of fitness analogy is to treat reading like I treat running. In particular, running 5K. Because if you want to run 5K faster, the worst thing you can do is just keep running 5K, trying to get a faster time each week. Instead, in addition to practicing the full distance, you're also going on long runs. You're going on fast kind of interval training, and you're probably even doing leg day at the gym at least once a week. So like we're trying to run faster, if you want to read faster, you need that same variety. And how I recommend you to do this is to read up to 3 books at once. And the best way to do this is to pick a fiction book, a non-fiction book, and a book on philosophy. And I can guarantee that these different writing styles, size of font, and whether there are images or diagrams will challenge your brain in a way that forces you to get faster and faster as your mind has to adapt to kind of all of these new challenges. So now you have 4 ways that you can read ridiculously quickly. But did you know there's an even faster way for you to absorb information from books? So you're going to want to start by watching my video on the book Psychology of Money. And that's so popular, you've probably already heard of it, but never got around to reading it. So if you want to learn if the book is actually going to be a good investment, you're going to want to watch this video. I'll see you all there.